Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel, My Guys. In today's video, we're going to do something that I've kind of touched a little bit on in other videos about dreadlocks, but I'm going to be responding to dreadlock myths. I can't take complete credit for this idea because it was in a conversation with the official B2A on Instagram that this idea of busting dreadlock myths came up. So like I said, this is a page, and this person also has a YouTube channel, so definitely check him out if you get the chance. Basically, anytime I talk to somebody and they find out that I have dreadlocks or they see that I have dreadlocks, they always seem to have a lot of ideas about dreadlocks that oftentimes are completely wrong. Most of this video is just going to be me responding to the comments that I got on my post on Facebook. I just posted saying, I need your help with a new video. What are some of the things you've heard about dreadlocks that you're not sure if they are true or not? Now, the very first response that I got was from a friend in high school. Her name is April Bailey. She said, "Is it true that you become 10 times cooler by having dreadlocks?" I responded, "Of course, thank goodness, because I need all the help I can get." Now, I know, of course, she was joking, but to me, personally, when I see somebody else who has mature dreadlocks that are well taken care of, I have a personal respect for that person because I know how much work goes into them, and I know what a commitment it can be. Now, the next reply that I got was from my little sister, London Ramsey. You can find her photography page on Facebook, London Ramsey Photography, and she is located near Oxford, Ohio. She does like engagement photos, senior pictures, she'll do weddings. And for a photographer, definitely check her out. You might also be thinking, why is your little sister asking you questions about dreadlocks? She is not. She knows all of the answers to these questions, but she was just kind of relaying a lot of the questions that she gets asked. So the first one that she asked is, cutting them the only way to get rid of them? And my response is no, but it is certainly the easiest way to get rid of them. It is very time consuming to comb out dreadlocks, but you have to remember that the more mature your dreadlocks are, the harder it's going to be to comb them out. After you've had dreadlocks for like 6 months to a year, they go through a tightening process where the knots themselves just get tighter. So after that period, it is very difficult to remove dreadlocks just because, they're knots. It's basically just a controlled lock that is knotted. That's all it is. That's another thing that I hear a lot is that, people are too afraid to do it. They think it's such a crazy commitment. If you got dreadlocks and a month later you decided like it wasn't for you, it was too much for you, literally just washing your hair in the shower, like how you would wash normal hair, with shampoo and conditioner will almost make them fall out and return to normal hair. You'll still have to comb out a little bit, but a lot goes into getting your dreadlocks to stay in and to stay tight. So the pressure from the shower head and using conditioner, which is a detangler, will make dreadlocks fall out. So that is the first step in combing out your dreadlocks. Now, if you don't want to put the time in, and if it just sounds like too much work, you can go and have a salon do it, but it is very expensive just because it takes so much time. I've definitely heard of people paying $400-500 to have a salon comb their hair out, which to me is just crazy. I'm like, I'll do it myself. I don't care. So in conclusion, yes, cutting them is the easiest way, and for probably mostly men, that's the way that makes the most sense, but personally, I don't want a shaved head, so I'll put in the work. I don't mind. I'm just not going to do it. The next question that she asked is, can mold really grow in them if they aren't dried properly? Not really mold, but mildew. So basically, yes. I compare dreadlocks to sponges a lot, and really if you think of it that way, it makes it easier for you to kind of wrap your head around what's going on inside of a dreadlock. If you had a sponge in your kitchen sink and you were doing dishes with them, usually when you're done using that sponge, you squeeze all of the water out, you get it pretty dry, and then you leave it out to air dry. That way there isn't a lot of water like stuck inside of it. And the reason you do that is because most of us know if you leave something wet like that for a prolonged period of time, you're going to start getting different kinds of molds and mildew growing on the inside of the sponge. So again, using that analogy on dreadlocks, when you shower with dreadlocks or when you soak them, you are getting water to the very center, and if you're not careful to dry them properly, then yes, definitely. Any sitting water for more than 24 hours, I think it is, can start to grow mildew. If you've ever smelled like an old book or a wet dog kind of smell, that's what mildew is. And if you're listening to this and if you have dreadlocks and if your dreadlocks smell that way, don't freak out. You don't have to like shave your hair off or anything like that. What you should do to prevent mildew or to get rid of mildew is get used to soaking your hair at least once a month and use natural cleaners like baking soda. You can use tea tree oil. A lot of people like to use lemon juice as well, but you have to be careful because lemon juice will lighten your hair, so make sure you're rinsing all of that out. But if you're soaking your dreadlocks in some kind of a concoction involving at least one of those things, and then if you're drying them properly, it's possible to, deep cleanse them and get rid of anything yucky like that. I soak mine at least once a month. So it's a good thing to do for preventative, care, and also for if you are having problems with your dreadlocks smelling or anything like that. You might just not be cleaning them properly, and you might just need to soak them just to ensure that the center of the dreadlock is getting cleaned well enough. And the last question she asked, she was obviously trying to be silly, but she said, did you do yours on purpose, or are you just a dirty person? That kind of goes back to the, is it true you can't wash your hair for 2 weeks before you get dreadlocks myth? If you got dreadlocks by no method other than just neglect, which is where you don't do anything to your hair, you don't touch it, you don't wash it, you don't do anything, your dreadlocks would not look purposeful. Meaning that they're not going to look like, if you can look at mine, you see how there's like a row of dreadlocks, and each dreadlock is in its own little section. You can see that these were kind of plotted out. And, if you lift up that row, there's another row, and they're staggered on top of each other. So my dreadlocks, since they're sectioned and since most of them are approximately the same size, you can tell that mine were purposeful. I did do mine on purpose. There was a picture circulating like a few years ago where there was a man, I believe he was homeless, and he was, riding a public bus, and he basically had like all of his hair came back and like behind his shoulders and just fell down, and every single hair was like joined up into a single fat dreadlock. Now that is not a dreadlock that somebody created. That is just from not being able to wash your hair, not being able to comb your hair. Personally, I can look at somebody's dreadlocks and tell, what methods they used, how they created them, about how long they've had them. But yeah, if you see dreadlocks that are mostly, symmetrical in size, and they lay properly, and they're like staggered on the scalp, then those were probably purposeful dreadlocks. I am so hyper, I obviously need more of this. So the next question is from another friend from high school. She asked, how often do you wash your dreads? How do you wash them? Do you blow dry them? And she said most of my questions are just about maintenance. So when you first get dreadlocks, like I was saying earlier, you have to be a little bit more gentle with them. You cannot wash them in the shower because the way a shower head works is obviously it sprays the water down on top of your head, but because there's so many different streams and because the pressure can be quite high, it basically massages your dreadlocks in a downward motion, and it will cause the knots to fall out. You also cannot use conditioner because conditioner is a detangler. You can't use a lot of oils. You don't really want your hair to be too greasy, but you definitely want to keep them clean. That's another thing that a lot of people think, to get dreadlocks you have to have really nasty, greasy, oily hair. But honestly, just being completely honest, clean hair, dreadlocks, so much easier than dirty hair. If you think about it, whenever your hair is greasy, what is it? I mean, it's slick, it's slippery. And when you're trying to get tangles out of your hair, you use something that's slick and slippery to get them out, a detangler, a conditioner. So it is very important to wash them, and especially so early on, because usually when you first get dreadlocks, your hair is used to being washed at least, every other day, maybe every 3 days. So you're going to be producing oils a lot sooner. Now you can kind of train your scalp. That's what I've done. When I first got dreadlocks, I was washing them I think every 3 days. They would just get so greasy that I really couldn't handle it anymore, and I would have to wash them. But 3 days eventually turned into 4, which eventually turned into 5, which eventually turned into a week. And now I can honestly say that I just kind of play it by ear. The main reason for me to wash my dreadlocks is because I am a smoker, so I oftentimes will get like a whiff of cigarette smoke, and that's when usually I know I need to wash them, because other people can probably smell that too. But like I was saying, my hair probably gets greasy anywhere from 10 to 14 days after I've washed it. And usually that's just in my bangs. My actual dreadlocks themselves don't feel greasy at all. And going back to how I wash them, now that my dreadlocks are more mature, I can wash them in the shower. I usually recommend for people who have just gotten dreadlocks to wait at least like 3 to 6 months before they can wash them in the shower. But even though I do wash them in the shower, I still soak them, like I said, every month, just to be sure that everything is getting nice and clean. So she also asked if I blow dry, and I definitely do, because it does take a long time for dreadlocks to dry naturally. So it's important to use a blow dryer, and especially so for me because I usually shower before I go to sleep. one of the biggest mistakes that you can make is going to sleep with wet dreadlocks. But when I use my blow dryer, I use it on high heat and low speed. If you use it on high speed, it's going to be more likely to blow like some flyaways out of the dreadlock. You want to try to keep the hairs intact. You don't want to be like trying to blow them out of like the actual lock. So that's why you want to use speed, but the high heat is definitely important because you need to make sure that you're drying everything, even the center of the dreadlock, which sounds like it would take a lot of time, and that's because it does. It takes me like 2 hours to completely blow dry my hair. But other than that, about general maintenance, just washing them, soaking them. When you first have dreadlocks, you might need to take some of like the loose hairs, and usually I will use a very small crochet hook to just kind of pull them through the dreadlock, but you don't want to do that too much. You really just want to make sure none of them are growing together, and yeah, that's about it. The next question that I got was from a family friend. Her name is Becca Muller. She is of Becca Muller Photography, also located near Oxford, Ohio, so you should find her on Facebook. Again, if you need any pictures done, she does weddings. She is a great photographer. She actually did my senior pictures, and I could not have been more happy with them. I should say my little sister has done pictures with me and my son, and they were great as well, so there you go. There's two options. I'm not telling you which one to go to. They're both great. So Becca asked an awesome question. She kind of acted a little bit embarrassed to ask it, but I was really, really glad that she did. She asked if they smell. And she said, I've never had anyone close enough to ask, but maybe you can set us straight. So like I said, I'm really glad that she asked this question because like when you first meet someone with dreadlocks, you don't want to be like, can I smell them? But my response to her basically was, oh god, yes. Again, we're going to compare dreadlocks to sponges. They are like sponges in that they will just pick up everything around them. That includes fuzzies on blankets and pillows. That includes pet hair if you have pets that shed. But that also includes smells. Like I said earlier, I am a smoker and I will notice mine smelling like cigarettes. And that goes for any kind of smoke. I mean, if you go to bonfires. Another way that dreadlocks can have kind of a weird smell is if you're not washing them properly, if you get milk. What the hell was that? There's a moth on me. But another way that dreadlocks can smell, again, is with mildew. We kind of touched on that earlier. There are ways to get around most of these things, just like with mildew. You know, you can make sure that you're keeping them clean and dry. And with the pet hair and the fuzzies and stuff like that, a great thing to do is to wrap them in like a silk scarf. And that keeps most stuff from getting stuck inside of them. So the next question that I got was kind of a tough one. It was from my grandmother. I'm not going to say her name because I don't know if she wanted me to or not, but she asked, why would you want them? She thinks that my natural hair is more pretty, and she apologized and said, but this is just what older people are thinking. Now, I actually didn't get upset when I read that because, I mean, yeah, she doesn't like my hair. That's fine. But this is the way that I think of it. If you are making any kind of decision, like buying a house, buying an apartment, cutting your hair, getting a new hairstyle, dyeing it, getting tattoos, piercings, even cosmetic surgery. If you are going to wait until every single person that is involved with you approves of something like that, you will never get what you want. At some point, you're going to have to make the call. You're the one who has to live with those decisions. I love my hair, so going back to what she said, I understand why she wouldn't like them. And I understand that a lot of people just think they're nasty and think that they look gross. Anytime I've tried to do a live video on Instagram and talk about my dreadlocks, the only responses that I've gotten were, you would be so much prettier without dreadlocks. You should shave your head. And that doesn't really upset me because, I mean, that's their opinion and they're completely entitled to that. But for me personally, when I see something that I don't like, I don't feel the need to tell everybody necessarily. But I'm not saying that my grandmother was wrong in posting that question because, yeah, it is something that a lot of people think. I work with mostly like 40 to 50-year-old men. And I mean, I hear comments all the time like, oh, you're finally getting rid of that rat's nest. And you know, I've heard it all. And it doesn't really bother me anymore because I like them. I know that they're not gross. I know that I take care of them properly. And I've kind of grown a pretty thick skin about it because I just know a lot of people don't like them. But they've made me really, really happy and I don't regret it for a single second. And I know that this is kind of a long-winded answer, but I feel like if people knew the actual facts about dreadlocks, they wouldn't think that they're so disgusting or that they're like unsanitary or stinky. I mean, you're watching this video on YouTube, obviously, so you cannot, get up close and really look at my dreadlocks and smell them and feel them. But I mean, as long as you're treating them properly and as long as you're cleaning them often and putting in the work to be sure that they are not gross, then they're not going to be gross. Okay, so the next response that I got was from a friend called Courtney Gross, and she asked, how does it affect your job? Do people look at you weird in public? And she also asked me to tell you guys about a story when I first got my dreadlocks, so I will do that after I answer her questions. But having dreadlocks has never really affected my job, but I've basically had the same job since I graduated high school, actually since before I graduated high school, so it's never affected any like interviews or anything like that with me. The kind of work that I do, I don't really have more strict guidelines just because I have dreadlocks. I have to keep my hair pulled back because I work around a lot of rotating machinery, but that would be the same if I had like normal hair this length. They would still require me to keep it pulled back. So as far as people looking at me weird in public goes, I get more weird looks from kids than I do adults. Most adults or people like my age usually compliment them, but the adults who are like obviously disgusted with them, they're like, that's not your real hair, is it? Or they'll just ask like, what is that? And you know, it's just no big deal. But as far as kids goes, most of the time they're just kind of intrigued and they're interested, like, what's wrong with your hair? What do you do to your hair? I had this one little girl who was like, she kind of had her nose scrunched up and she was like, what did you do to your hair? She was looking at them, she obviously thought that they looked gross. So I was like, this is what happens if you don't let your mom brush your hair. And she was like, oh God. And her mom laughed and it was kind of funny, I don't know. Anyway, but the story that my friend asked me to tell you guys about was actually the very first day that we started doing my dreadlocks. Now for those of you who don't know, whenever I first got my dreadlocks, I didn't do my dreadlocks alone. I had help from my mother and I had really, really short hair. So we were dreadlocking my real hair and then we had these extensions that we were dreadlocking. It was just normal blonde extensions and we were using the back combing method to turn them into dreadlocks. So we would do one little strand and then I would take like the end of the extension and kind of like weave it or like braid it kind of into my real hair. That way I had, you know, longer dreadlocks. Well, the first day that we worked on them, I literally got like 4 dreadlocks done. And it was these 4 down here, like at the bottom. So try to imagine I had all of my hair sectioned and I had small like rubber bands around each section. And I had to go pick up my son from daycare. So basically I had to walk into the daycare, I had like a beanie on and it had a bunch of like really weird lumps because I tried to tuck all of my like normal hair up into the beanie. And then I had 4 little dreadlocks like sticking out of one side of the beanie and it just looked so ridiculous. And it was like 100 degrees that day, so I was like drenched in sweat and I had this weird like lumpy hat on and it was just, it was not a very good look. So the last question that I got was also from a friend. Her name is Clarissa Breeding. She asked, how long does it take to accomplish dreadlocks and is it easier to take care of or harder to take care of compared to regular hair? It took me and my mom about 3 days to do dreadlocks, and that was using the back combing method, which is where you put all of your hair into the sections that you want, and then basically like you twist the hair a little bit and you comb towards the scalp, then you twist it in the other direction and you comb towards the scalp. And this is basically just supposed to knot everything up really evenly and, you know, just make a dreadlock basically. Now since I did my dreadlocks, I've done other people's dreadlocks as well, and I've found that it's easier to use the twist and rip method, which is where you twist the hair, but instead of using the comb to create the knots, you basically rip it with your fingers. And you can twist it and rip it and twist it the other way and rip it. Now what a lot of people don't know is that once you get dreadlocks, it re-dreadlocks itself as your hair grows in. So you don't really have to like re-dreadlock the hair that's growing in. So in regards to whether or not if it's easier compared to normal hair to take care of, at first, again, you do have to be really careful about how you're washing them, how you're drying them, and even after you've had them for a long time, you still have to be careful to keep them dry. But at the point that I'm at, I would say like every month I might spend 4 hours, maybe 5 hours on my dreadlocks. So, I mean, I definitely know some people who probably spend like half an hour to an hour every single day on their normal hair. So where I am right now, I would definitely say that it does take a lot less time. I don't really have to do anything to them. I mean, other than washing them, the way that I wake up in the morning is the way that I wear my hair. But going back to when I first got my dreadlocks, I was probably spending about 2 hours a week on them. So again, once you get past that kind of awkward phase where they're still loose and you're waiting for them to tighten up, they are very low maintenance and I love that. I feel like there was another question. Oh, there was kind of another question. It was actually in a reply to my sister's comment. And she asked if when you remove dreadlocks, if you keep your length and the integrity of your hair. Now I know I've said this in other videos, but I didn't used to have these bangs. Like if you look at where they start, all of this hair up here used to be 3 dreadlocks. So I removed those 3 whenever I had had my dreadlocks for like 2 years, I think. And what a lot of people don't realize is that when you have your hair in dreadlocks, it halves the length of your hair. So if you look, they come to, yeah, I mean about, you know, here on my back. Now if I was to comb out, like let's just take this longest one. If I was to comb this dreadlock out right here, it would be twice the length. So my hair is quite long, and that also means that as your hair is growing out, what is it? They say you grow like 1/4 of an inch of hair every month. You know, you're only getting about half of that with dreadlocks. And the only reason for that is because the hair is kind of like kinked up inside of the knot. So it's twisting and it's just kind of like kinked up and almost like a braid kind of. So I saw that firsthand when I combed these dreadlocks out. So you definitely keep your length. You even actually kind of get more length. But as far as the health of that hair goes, I actually found that my hair was incredibly healthy. You've definitely heard by now that obviously it's not the most healthy thing in the world to use shampoo on your hair every single day. So the fact that I shampoo my hair a lot less and I'm not taking, you know, heat to it, I also think that my hair just kind of holds the natural oils in it a little bit more than normal hair does, and I think that's a big part of why it is so healthy. Because I mean, seriously, you guys, it's been like 5 years since I've trimmed this or anything, and I mean, like, I don't know how well you can see it, but that's pretty healthy hair. So I don't know, those are some of the theories that I have as to why my hair has still remained so healthy, even though it's been a really long time since I've like trimmed it or done anything like that to it. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you know of any dreadlock myths that I did not get to in this video, go ahead and comment them down below and I will be sure to answer. So as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.